Greetings, this is Janita with NNV News, and today we are preparing for an interview with Sister Janita Harris once again, but this time we will be talking about the Inner Sense Healing Arts Collective. So we will go ahead and start as soon as she gets on here. Oh, there she is. That was fast. So in the meantime, please follow us on here on our Instagram, NNV News. Okay. And then you can go ahead and follow us on YouTube, NNV News.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. I am so sorry for my tardiness. Because I live in Chicago, so when I saw 5 p.m., I thought that I had more time, and then I saw that it was 4, and I was like, oh yeah, it's not until 5. And then I looked, I was like, oh no,
Yes.
we're talking about Eastern.
Yes. I understand. I had the same issue at first because I'm also in Chicago right now, so I'm not sure why we said Eastern Standard Time instead of Central.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but that is okay. We're here.
You look great. I like your earrings.
Thank you. I love your background. It just matches your skin color so well.
Oh, thank you.
And it's melanin pop.
Yeah, that was not on purpose. That was an accident.
Okay, so are you ready to go ahead and start?
Yeah, whenever you are.
Okay, well, I am ready. So recently you started working with the Inner Sense Healing Arts Collective, correct?
Yeah, so I am on their board, and so I'm a board member, and they already had crucial conversations, and it was a very different format, and then it came up for me to be able to host it, and I was like, cool, I definitely am open to that.
So for those of us who don't know, what is the Inner Sense Healing Arts Collective?
That's a great question. It is a yoga community filled of healers, artists. So it's like people who are into just all different sorts of things like yoga, tarot, crystals. They're really intentional with like working with communities. So one of their missions is to empower historically disempowered communities and marginalized communities.
Wow, I can see why you would want to be involved in an organization as such.
Yeah.
So how can we follow this organization or get more involved with it? Because I know personally that's something that I love. I'm definitely into all those different things. Maybe not yoga yet, but into crystals and all that. So how can we
Have you done yoga?
Not really.
Oh, you should do yoga. Yoga is a lot of fun, but outside of it being fun, it's actually really just healing. It's really good to stretch the body and breathe into the body. So one of the reasons why I actually got into yoga is because when I would wake up, I would have really bad lower back pain, and I didn't know what was going on. And so I learned through yoga to breathe into the pain, which sounds like, why would I breathe into the pain, right? But actually, when I started doing it, I could actually feel my back expand. And that was really new for me because I was like, oh, okay. So I would breathe into the part of my back that was really tight and I could feel it expand. And so over time, but doing yoga, I somehow I don't know if my back got stronger or what, but just waking up in the morning, it significantly reduced having back pain.
Wow.
And then also to my left hip, like if I would do, crisscross applesauce, when I would do it, my left leg would look like this, and my right hip so my hips weren't aligned. So the left would look like this and the right would be parallel to the ground. And I just kind of thought like, okay, this is probably going to be like the rest of my life or anything like that. But I started doing yoga, and eventually my left leg began to come down. So the left hip naturally readjusted over time from doing yoga. So I love yoga. I just, it's a really great activity. Men do it too. It's good for the body.
Okay. I'm going to check out yoga. So I've been having like the same problem with my hips, but I stretch. I don't necessarily do yoga. I do Kung Fu. So, we do a lot of healing in a lot of the different moves that we do, but
let me not get on your bad side. Next thing you know, you're like, hiya.
No. But so do you mind talking a little bit more about healing and how you all promote healing?
well, so they offer different classes. They do, so how I'm working with them on the board, I'll be doing like monthly shows for them. The next conversation will be with a woman named Alicia Salmon. She used to be on Bad Girls Club season 10 or 12. She's now a casting director. And so she's casted for Shameless and Empire. She's super awesome. And so that particular show is really going to just be about like, how do we transform ourselves? So what I'm doing on the board is I'm just having really intentional conversations that are meant to like inspiring and uplift people. And then outside of that, they have a whole bunch of different offerings. So if people want to know more about Terra, which I'm not really versed in Terra like that to honestly, but you can, you could pick a card. And I will say when I have picked cards, those cards really be spot on. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm definitely going through this right now. This is unique. And so then they've got just different yoga classes, and they've got Terra and things like that as well.
Okay. So due to COVID-19, I know maybe the classes might have once been held in person. How have you all been reacting to dealing with everything being online and virtual?
Well, so the board has been helping Isha, which is the community, adjust to that. And so they have a lot of online offerings, and some of them are donation based. People could go to the Inner Sense Healing Arts Facebook page and IG, and then you could see all that as well. And you could take online courses, Zoom links, and things like that. So it's a really great way to connect with communities without people having to leave their homes.
I'm super interested in this. So do you have to become a member first before you have access to other classes?
No, you could do a drop-in session. You could just, if you go to the page, you could check it out and see what you're interested in, do a drop-in session or something like that. So you don't have to be a member. I actually wasn't a member of Isha until I got asked if I wanted to apply for the board, and then I went through like an application process. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is a really intentional community who's trying to do the best they can do to bring healing and peace to the world.
Wow. I'm super interested in this. I'm definitely going to check it out. And for those of our viewers who just joined, do you mind restating how they can check it out as well and what it's about? So we got the healing down, the yoga, the crystals.
Yeah, let me make sure I have the right name on it. But it's Inner Sense Isha Collective Arts.
That's the website?
That's, yeah.
I'm going to type in on my computer as well.
Hold on.
Isha as in ISHA?
Yes. They're also known as Inner Sense.
Oh, the abbreviation.
Yeah, that's Isha is the abbreviation of it. Sorry, I'm like trying to find it. But outside of that, though, oh yeah, so it's on Instagram. People can find it by Inner Sense Healing Arts Collective, and you could see all the different offerings. There's the Terra Talk with Aaliyah and Diana. That's on Tuesdays. Then there is in like community intentions. You could see that I had the conversation, crucial conversations with Priya Shah. She is the founder of the Simple Good, a nonprofit organization in Chicago. And so that was super fun. One of the things that I really enjoyed about that conversation is, so Priya is of Indian descent. She's a woman, and she was also born with one hand. And so she really talked about how a lot of the times our identities limit us, right? So it's like how you're born in the world, people are going to prescribe what you can do. And so she talked about how, like, for instance, when she wanted to play basketball, she was actually pretty talented, but because she had one hand, she kept getting cut. And so she ends up going to the slums in like Brazil and a couple other countries, and she realizes that people out there, they have this resilience. And so she's looking at it like what's a little bit different. And what she found out is that they don't allow people to limit their possibilities of who they are in the world. And so one of the things that I think was really great about that conversation is we have to think about, are you going to be a minor character in someone else's story of you, or are you going to create the possibility? Like, who are you? You know, like, who are you in the world? That's to you.
Right. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, who am I? That's a wonderful question. I don't know why I wouldn't be able to answer a question about myself. I find myself to be a very ambitious person. If I want it, if I want it, I'm going to work for it. I'm going to make it happen. I'm an architecture major, so I'm always working exactly for what I want. But overall, I'm just a person who is striving to be righteous.
Right. And so what are the things that people say about you that's like limited? Like, let's think about that.
So first of all, I'm a woman. I'm a woman of color. I'm Muslim, and I'm working in STEM. So that's very limiting.
Right. Because, like, I know, for instance, when I started working with the Nation of Islam, people would be like, the women there are oppressed. So let's just say, like, that's something that people have put onto you. That limits you. That limits who you are in the world. And I think this is another reason why the conversation with Priya is so necessary, right? Because no matter who you are, no matter what you're going to do, someone is going to say, oh, you're a Muslim woman? Oh, you must be oppressed. You must not have a voice. And you could live in that possibility and totally prove it right. Or you could be like, that's not the reality. Here I am. I have my own TV show and I'm interviewing people like Janita. You know what I mean? Like, you're living in a possibility that's larger than what people's negativity about who you should be in the world is, right? And so Crucial Conversations is really about just bringing people such as yourself and Priya out into the open. You know, like, we all have a responsibility to be who we say we're going to be, and we all have our own responsibility to define that part for ourselves.
So growing up, I know a lot of women and men, though, they do face issues like this, like all this judgment cast on them, and so they might be like, oh, like, maybe I can't do this. So how do you think that we could really push ourselves up and work ourselves up to be like, yes, I can do this, and I will do this, and I won't let your opinion stop me from doing what I want to do?
That's a really good question. And I would say personally, like, growing up from the state of Washington, Tacoma, Washington, and being like brown skin, darker skin, I was told that, like, I was told that I was poor, right? So I grew up thinking, like, I'm Black, I'm poor, I'm unattractive, I'm not smart, I'm not this, like, the world's not gonna open up for me. And so what happened is, when I would have those thoughts, guess what? The world did not open up for me. And it's not to say that there's not, like, colorism doesn't exist, sexism doesn't exist, racism doesn't exist. I'm not minimizing those things. But in those narratives, I was disempowered and I was a victim to my circumstances. And so, similar to Priya, when I traveled abroad, I realized, like, my identity was so much broader than what I was originally told, right? So I started to realize, like, well, one, the fact that I'm able to even study abroad says that either I'm good with finances, or I cannot be as poor as what people are saying. So I think, to answer the question, it's more so like, if you don't have certain experiences that challenge your mindset, then I would encourage people to listen to stories where people are like Priya, or they are, like, there are people who graduated high school with a 1.1 GPA, and now they run Fortune 500 companies, or they're multi-billionaires. And it's like, well, did they live in the possibility that they weren't anybody important, or did they redefine themselves? A lot of times we don't have access to the ability to see ourselves outside of the perception of what other people set to us. So, like, maybe isolation could be good. Sometimes you got to get away from people, because they want to limit you so much.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. People do limit you, especially sometimes when they do see you doing great. That's when they're like, oh, well, you're not doing that good anyways. So it is really about the mindset. It definitely is.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So moving on to our next question. I know you are the co-host of Doing the Math with Dr. Wesley. So how are you going to, or how are you managing your time between this and the Healing Innocence Collective?
Well, the Innocence Collective is just once a month. And right now, Dr. Wesley is working on some stuff. So I don't know when that when we're going to have another show, but I know we'll have a show soon once he finishes his research. And don't want to give too much away, but I'm just super excited. I feel like I've learned so much working with Dr. Wesley, so it's like, man. But so basically, it's not really hard to divide my time, because in essence, they're kind of like low commitment. They take a lot of time, but the frequency of them is like not that often. Like whenever Dr. Wesley finishes his research, then we will have a show, but he's deep into the studies of it. He's working on something phenomenal, as he always is. So I don't know his time limit. You know what I mean? Like you can't rush brilliance. And then Isha is just like once a month. But outside of that, I'm actually going to be producing a show called High Value with a friend of mine, Natasha. We're the producers of it. And so Mike Wiley and Marco, I cannot pronounce Marco's last name right now. I need to work on that. It's an Italian last name. It's like Salgo. This is like not a good look right now. But the podcast is called High Value. And so Mike is also my fiance. He is a mental health coach and a professional licensed therapist. And so he works with D1 athletes and professional athletes, as well as the general public. And then Marco works with, he's a realtor. He's also a life coach, and he's an entrepreneur. Like one of the things that he talked about in our first show, just to kind of give a little snippet, is he had a deal that was for $50,000 in real estate, but due to COVID-19, it went down, right? So he lost this money. Like in real estate, it doesn't happen until the deal is signed, and all the paperwork is completed. So like he had to reassess what his skill set was, and so he was like, okay, I'm really good at fixing things, so I'm going to create a handyman business. And so High Value is exactly that, right? It's being able to assess your current skill set and create what you need to create to live a certain type of lifestyle. But there are like mental blocks. So considering that Mike works with athletes, right, it gets to a point to where someone that's in the NBA or the WNBA or just a D1 athlete, they're really, really talented and they're really phenomenal. And so it's no longer about their physical ability. It becomes about their mental ability and what mental blocks that that they have to overcome. And so going back right to the situation with Marco and the deal, you realize that if he didn't have a certain mindset about himself and who he was and his ability to create, he just lost $50,000 due to COVID. What are you going to do? Curl up in a ball? A lot of us are doing that, right? And it's not to shame anybody, but there's a certain type of mindset that excels during situations like that. And so High Value, we're producing this project to help people kind of identify what mental barriers that they're having, so that they can excel in life. Because I believe that, there's abundance for all of us. Well, one, there is abundance for all of us, if people have billions of dollars and there's multiple billionaires, that means that there are multiple people who could be millionaires and billionaires themselves. They just don't know how to do it, right? They don't have the skill set. They don't have the mindset. There's a lack. And so it's like we're filling that gap. And so that's something that I'm working on. And that, I would say that's like my main priority right now.
Oh, I love the passion. I love it. So you seem to be very well versed when it comes to mental health. So do you mind just taking a moment to talk about mental health, especially at a time like this, COVID, where everybody's at home, nobody's feeling inspired or motivated. And so we are just like on the couch, like not doing anything. So do you mind just talking about the importance of keeping a healthy and good mental health?
Oh, it's so valuable. It's extremely valuable. So I used to be a social worker, and I provided therapy. And so I would say more than ever, we're in an extreme mental health crisis. And as we go into the December, into the winter months, we're going to really see the effects of the mental health crisis that we're actually in right now. Because on top of quarantine, naturally, depression goes up when winter's around. And so I think one of the things is we have to limit how much we take in toxicity. So for instance, like if you're watching TV shows where everyone's like, be this and be that, I'm gonna kill you, da da da, you might think that, oh, I'm just like mindlessly watching this television, but mentally you're you're putting it in. So if you're already low energy, you're already low vibrational energy, and you're already feeling bad, and then you go out and you consume music or TV that is also matching that frequency, you're adding to whatever mental health issues that you might be experiencing. I would really recommend therapy. You could go to Black Psychology Today to find a therapist. They accept Medicaid, so Medicaid and Medicare. If you're on public aid, shouldn't be a reason why you don't seek out therapy. You can there's like online communities. There's a lot. I think our mental health really impacts not only how we see ourselves, but how we show up in the world and how we interact. And even I have like issues too. It's like I think I'm really high energy, but then I also go really low energy. Mm-hmm. And so as someone that is extremely social, it is very hard to be quarantined all the time. And then like I haven't had the shows that I was doing as frequently. So it's like my life has changed, So now it's like I'm waiting for my next show with Dr. Wesley. I'm waiting for my next show with Crucial Conversations. So this is another reason why it's like I'm going to create high value, because I need to do something active, because my mental health of just being inside my 1-bedroom apartment all day long has been driving me crazy.
Yeah.
It has. I'm laughing, but this is like sometimes you laugh because you're uncomfortable because you're telling the truth. Like, This is one of those type of laughs. Like, no, for real.
I completely understand. Personally, for me, I've been in school, so that's been just taking up all my time. But luckily, this is my last week. But so you did just mention how
wait, what are you gonna do after your last week?
So I also work at Sean Michelle's Homemade Ice Cream, which is a Black-owned ice cream shop.
I know Sean Michelle. Shout out to Sean Michelle's.
Yes. So anytime you go up there, you're gonna most likely see me. But yeah, I'm going to be working. I'm going to do some studying. Make sure I really heal myself from all of the stress and damage that I've put on myself this semester. Mm-hmm. But I just want to speak on that quick point that you said.
Oh, yeah.
You stated that everything that goes in, like we may think that it's like going right out, like we're listening to it, but that really resonates with us. Like that really stays with us. And that mindset could, like really stick with us. Like when we play all these video games, when we watch videos on TV or on YouTube, Instagram, WorldStar, I don't know, like all of this craziness is sticking in your head. And so if you're not, like you were saying, if you don't have like a vibration, like a strong vibration, or if you don't know yourself well enough to like really be able to balance what's coming in versus what's going out, what do you think that we should do? And if there is something that we could easily do, how does Isha offer help?
Well, one, I think we have to cultivate the appetite for positivity, right? So it's like, for instance, it is so easy for me to be on a binge watch for reality TV. So I'll watch Black Ink Crew, Chicago, New York, Love and Hip Hop, 90 Day Fiance, and I'm like watching and consuming this stuff. But then, for instance, even if I watch one of my own interviews with either Dr. Wesley or with like Crucial Conversations, and I'm actually the interviewer, right? My attention span, I'm like, whoa, I'm like an hour and something in. I'm like, when is this over? But when I'm watching something that's toxic, I'm not like, when is this over? I've just gone to the next episode, or I'll watch Snapped. And so what I've learned is like, oh my gosh, I actually have to cultivate the aptitude, the mental and spiritual aptitude to want to watch something that fills me up. Because I find that even if I'm the host of it, I'm like, oh, this is just too positive. This is just like too life changing. I need something toxic in my life, like I need to people yelling and stuff. But then I had to slow down on that, because have you ever just watched something really negative, and next thing you know, you're arguing with somebody else, and it's so unrelated? But then I started realizing it's like, well, if I just consumed a whole bunch of dysfunctional relationships And now I'm arguing, and the argument started with me. It's probably because I'm consuming a whole bunch of things, and naturally, whatever you consume, you have to like, you know, it has to come out. You know, it's just like whatever you drink, whatever you eat, whatever you consume, it always has to come out. So then I started to really pay attention to like how things were coming out, and things were coming out based off of what I was watching or what I was listening to, and it was all just super negative. So now I've been intentionally like creating an appetite mentally and spiritually and emotionally for things that uplift me and make me feel good. So that means like limiting the amount of times that I watch something really toxic. And it's really hard because it's a habit, you know, like for years and years and years, I've been on one particular path. And now for like the last 2 years, I've been more of on a path of like enlightenment and like trying to understand who I am in the world, or like Black history, for instance. And that takes time. So like, I think people have to realize like cultivating an attitude or an appetite to listen to things that vibrationally lift you is not gonna, it might not be like I just got it right there, right? So it's going to take some time. You could also, for Isha, that is, you know, you could do yoga and things like that. But even if you're doing yoga, if you're still going back home and you're listening to things that destroy your mind and your spirit in your own household, you're still going to struggle.
Yes.
I don't know if I answered the question. Did I?
I think you did. And you also gave some advice. So pretty much, balance is very important. These things, they're not going to happen immediately. It takes time, so you have to be patient. You have to be able to work with yourself. And one more question. Crucial Conversations, that's your segment with Isha. How can we tune into that? Is that live, or can we go back and rewatch it?
Oh, well, you could go back and rewatch it on the Inner Sense Healing Arts Collective YouTube. It actually doesn't come up unless you do the whole name. And so you could watch the first episode was with Priya. So you could watch that live. And then, not live, I mean, you could watch the rewatch of it. And then once a month, it's live. And so the next one, I believe, is on the 18th. And that's going to be with Alicia. So I was telling you that I'm really super excited about that one. So so far for the shows, I've been asking, I've chosen some of the guests and stuff. And so what I'm really excited to do, Crucial Conversations with Alicia, just because Alicia used to be on Bad Girls Club. I met her like almost like 2 years ago. When I first met her, I didn't know who she was. And it doesn't matter, right? Like it's not like that's who she says. But when I met her, she was just like this really positive, vibrant light, always happy. And so what I'm excited about that particular conversation is there's a transformation of self, right? So like she's going to talk about how when she was on Bad Girls Club, she didn't really like who she was and who she'd become. And then she takes ownership of who that person is. And then now all of a sudden, if you meet her, she physically looks different. So like when you become a positive person, you physically look different. Like you look better. You look more attractive. Not that she was unattractive before, but something about just like people who have high vibrations and who are just good, they look good. You want to be around them, you know? But like now she's a casting director for TV shows that people watch, like Shameless and Empire, and she has a whole new project. And like she wouldn't have gotten to that point had she not really taken the time to review herself. And I think winter, naturally, I'm all about seasons. So winter naturally is the season where things are gonna die. You know, things in nature are gonna die, but humans, we could take this as a time to assess, like, okay, if you don't like something about yourself, that's totally fine. Like, don't be upset with yourself that you don't like something about yourself. In fact, your greatest version, honestly, is going to be a result of part of the stuff that you don't like. And it's kind of a hard concept, right? Like, so if you don't think you're a really good person and then you completely transform, that new being really did come out of that part of the self that you did not like, that part of yourself that you hate. So like, I say that to kind of like give hope, right? Because it's like who she is today would not have been without that part that she hated. The part that she was trying to escape when she was on Bad Girls Club and she didn't like that version of herself, to who she is today, it's because of that bad part, if that makes sense. So I'm excited about that. Sometimes I feel like I'm on like a tangent and I'm like, am I making sense? Because I totally understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're making sense.
Oh, someone said great analogy. Yeah, like you seriously, it's the parts of yourself that you hate end up becoming later on help you become your best version. And so it makes it better because then it's like, all right, if there's a part of Janita that I really hate, and there is definitely parts of Janita where I'm like, man, I really don't like this about you. It helps me to humble myself, but also it helps me to take off pressure. I'm like, oh, I really hate this version of myself, but like this version of me is giving me a perspective that Janita in 2021 or Janita in 2022 is going to be like, dang, girl, like you overcame that. Now you can appreciate where you've been. And now you're this better person, but it's because you were, I'm not telling people go out and be bad people here, but I'm just saying it's going to be also a part of that bad part, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like we could just continue to go on and on about this. This is probably an endless conversation.
It is. I have to have you come on one of the shows. Because I'm also at some point. We already talked about this. Like you just got to stop being shy. We need to
working on it, and then one day, maybe in 2021, 2022, I'll be able to look back at my 2020 self and be like, wow, I really grew my social skills.
But you did. First off, I follow your own personal IG. You be giving like makeup tips and things like that, promoting other businesses. Like, even though I think this is a really, really great part because it's like you might not like that shy part of yourself, but for a lot of people who don't know you, they don't really know that you're shy. Like, I didn't know that you were shy until we had our first conversation. So it's like this is a really great part where it's like there's a part of yourself that you want to work on, but yet you're literally in the midst of working on it. Like you would not be having this interview if it was 100% true that you were just like this antisocial person. You've got social skills. Yes, and she's a fearless model too. What? Come on now. Come on, Naya.
Oh, don't hype my head up too much.
No, we're gonna hype it up. It's winter season. People are depressed. Let's hype each other up.
True.
That's another thing I think about, like positivity is like it makes you just feel so warm, and we're in winter right now, and so we might as well just give each other endless compliments. Why not? Like it's not. I don't think it's fake. Why is it that like if you said something mean about me, or if I said something mean about you, that's keeping it real?
I mean, I would rather somebody tell me the truth than lie to me.
Yeah, but what is the truth, right? Because it's like if I said something distasteful about you, then the thing is, oh well, at least she was keeping it real. But if I say something like, oh, you're doing a really great job, I really enjoy interviewing you, now you've got to assess whether or not I was telling the truth, because you don't know, right? Because we don't know when people give us positive feedback or positive reinforcement. Somehow we don't know, but whatever, like I could just be hating if I said something rude. How do you know that's the truth? That's a serious question.
That's very true. That's something that we have to assess. That's something we have to think about.
I think we just kind of like anticipate for people to say negative things, especially as like Black women, as women of color. Like you just kind of anticipate sometimes going to spaces that there's about to be like haters, or that someone's going to say something negative. You know what I mean? So it's like, then anytime someone says something is positive, I have to like inspect it, because I don't know if you're keeping it real. But if you tell me you don't like me, well, at least she was real. That's why people voted for Trump, because they're like, at least he's keeping it real.
Yeah, you're right. That's definitely something that we have to work on. All right. So before we end this interview today, is there anything else that you'd like to add to the conversation about working with Dr. Wesley, about Isha? Any piece of advice you'd like to leave us with?
Well, those were like so loaded just in itself. One, I would say working with Dr. Wesley and doing the math have just been a total blessing. I'm really glad that I got my start from there. I think just like thinking back when I was a social worker, and then all the times when I was like, at one point I was doing, I was actually interviewing, not like being a host interviewing, but like going for jobs. And a lot of like predominantly I would say like white spaces and stuff like that, but like working with the government and things like that. But I would always get rejected, right? And so they'd be like, you don't have enough experience. And so it was really interesting, because when I started working with Dr. Wesley, no one asked me about my resume. It was like, can you read this book? Can you ask questions? You know, I mean, and also too, like, as we said last time, the initial show wasn't meant to be, Dr. Wesley wasn't necessarily like meant to be the focus, let alone I wasn't necessarily meant to be the host. Like, it organically changed, like transformed in that. It was meant to be like a rotating show with different hosts and different guests. But I think it really just kind of changed my whole entire perspective, because before, everyone, things that I were actually qualified for, at least in my mind I thought I was qualified for, kept saying how, like, oh, you don't have enough experience. And then the biggest opportunity comes to me and no one's even asking me about my education or my experience, or anything like that. And then I think a lot of it honestly has to do with, like, you know, Black individuals tend to be, in my experience, or at least with the Nation of Islam, are more likely to give people an opportunity to grow without, like, saying, oh, you're not skilled here, you're not skilled there, than like the actual real world. And so when I look at, I probably wouldn't have gotten, I didn't go to school for journalism, you know, so I probably wouldn't have gotten even an opportunity to do a show with someone at the caliber of Dr. Wesley. You know, like, we're really talking about top of the cream. And then I got to be the one sitting across asking questions, you know, like, that's a big freaking deal. And I think, you know, it changed my life, because it's like, how off, like, people hire you based off of, can they see themselves in you? And I think in a lot of the spaces that were predominantly white, even if they were working with communities that look like me, they could not see themselves in me. So then it was based off of, do you have enough experience? And so in this situation, it was like, it was never of, does she have the experience? It was like, oh, we'll test this out, you know? And then I rocked it, you know? And then on top of that, like, Dr. Wesley, Brother Warren, they really, like, they taught me along the way. They're great mentors to me. And so now the fact that I'm even doing Crucial Conversations is definitely an extension of the work that I'm doing, that I've done and am doing with Dr. Wesley. The high value, a great another extension of what, because of this opportunity. And it's like, you know, yeah, so I would say that definitely changed my life. I always say that I really think people should just, especially Black people, should go, and they're already working with the Nation of Islam, even if they don't, like, realize it, but, like, actively go and work with people in the Nation of Islam, because a lot of people there will truly give you opportunities. They'll help you grow. And, you know, because it's, the commitment is, I love Black people. I want to see people elevate. And so it's like, I literally went through a whole educational system to only be told how unqualified I was and how I needed experience. Like, how am I going to get experience if you don't give me experience?
Right.
And then here it was more so like, can you read this book? Can you be prepared? Do you really want to learn? And it's like, yes, yes, yes.
Oh, I have experienced something like that as well.
Oh, do tell.
Yes, when I started working at Jean Michel's Homemade Ice Cream, I was just a scooper. But eventually, because I suppose the owner, Brother Yaya, saw something in me, how I was just willing to work. Like, I wanted to learn, I wanted to gain experience. And now I'm like, I'm his administrative assistant. And I also help with, like, everything in the ice cream shop.
And doesn't that, like, naturally boost your confidence?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, working on Do the Math boosted my confidence. And I realized that I had a false sense of confidence, because a lot of people go through school and you just think, like, oh, this piece of paper, oh, it means I'm something. And that's such an illusion, because the moment that piece of paper doesn't open a door for you, because multiple people say you don't have enough experience, I realized, like, oh, I built my self-esteem on a false foundation, right? Like, you're building real self-esteem because someone's empowering you. They're giving you the skills and they're training you without throwing you away. And look what you're doing, you know?
Right. Like, it's different when you're able to experience these things firsthand. Like, when you're living through it, then you're able to gain and pick up these skills. Like, I now know how to manage, which is something I didn't know before. So, and can we take a moment to talk about, I know you mentioned before how the white corporations were like, oh, like, I can't see myself in you. Like, I don't know how I can help you. But how, when it comes to working with Dr. Wesley, or really just the Black community overall, how he helped build yourself up.
Yeah, so I will say, no job ever said, "Hey, I can't see myself in you." These are my reflections afterwards, and I definitely think that people hire based off of if they can see them, if they can see themselves on you. Because some of the places that rejected me, I did, LinkedIn, you get to see who they hired, and I'll just say, some of those people's resumes wasn't near my resume at all. All right, the difference was they were white, and I assumed that someone could see themselves and be related and felt relatable to that person. I was like, yeah, I want to help this person build. So no job ever said anything like that to me. Although I did have one. Wait, actually, I did have one job interview, right? And it was with this Indian man, and it was over breakfast. He was over an hour late. So first off, I drove all the way down there, and it was this entrepreneurship job. And he starts telling me during the breakfast interview how he basically someone suggested me, and this is why he even took the interview with me. He's like, I just don't see it. And so I'm like, wow. Okay, what don't you see? Like, first off, this was the first time that I had an interview over food, so it was like a breakfast interview, so that was new. So I was like super nervous because I was like, I don't know, should I wait until he takes a bite? Like, how does this work, right? So anyway, he's like, I just don't see it. And I'm like, what don't you see? He's like, I just don't see what so-and-so sees in you. And to be honest, the only reason why you even have this interview is because this person suggested. And he's like, you just don't have the skill set. And so I'm thinking this man is wasting my time. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm listening. And so basically he tells me he's not going to give me the job. And then he goes, I just want you to know that if you feel like it's because you're Black, you just have to do better. And so then I was thinking well, first off, homeboy, in my head, this is all totally in my head, not what I said. Mm-hmm. In fact, what I said was, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And in retrospect, I'm actually so mad at myself that I was just like that. But so in my head, I was thinking first off, homeboy, why even bring me here just to tell me that you don't think that I'm qualified and you don't think that I'm talented? And now you're telling me it's if because you're Black and he's Indian, you just got to work harder. I wasn't thinking anything about race because I was blindsided by how much you told me I sucked, and so after that was the last time I took an interview. I actually stopped applying for jobs, and then I started realizing I'm just going to focus on the work that I'm doing with Dr. Wesley because I never had that experience. And so he was just kind of going on a tangent about how as an Indian man, he's had to work all of his life to get to this point, and this is why he was here. It was a very inappropriate, now I look back, conversation. And I just remembered, I just thanked him, and I was like, thank you so much. I'm so grateful, because I think also too, as a woman, as a Black woman, I've just learned to just always, you don't want to be problematic. You don't want to be combative, right? So you just want to be grateful. So I didn't stand up for myself, and then I went in the car and I cried. I just sat there and I cried, and I was so embarrassed because it's he could have just sent an email saying you're not what we're looking for, right. But he did give me a compliment. He was like, I also think your nonverbal communication skills were some of the highest that I've seen. So it was you tore me down, and then you talk about race. And I think this is why I came to the conclusion that people hire based off of if they can see themselves in you, right? And so he couldn't see himself in me. And so how Dr. Wesley and do the math has built me is any time where I've had issues, Dr. Wesley will sit there and talk to me. I remember one time when I first started doing the show, I would get a lot of negative comments, and it was very hard for me because it was I went from not having any social media to getting an Instagram and a Facebook account because Brother Warren asked me to. So I was now I'm being social. Mind you, I keep getting rejected in all the job markets that I'm trying to. So it just felt I was in a season of attack. And so some of the comments. And so this one day, Dr. Wesley asked how I was feeling. And so I was just it's this is a lot. One comment, someone said that I was a whore. Yeah, it was YouTube. People behind screens say whatever they want. And so he was well, we're gonna have this conversation. And so we ended up having a conversation on the air where he just started saying that I had a brilliant mind and I have a lot of value. And that's the type of stuff where it's one, I didn't ask him to do that. I didn't know that he was going to do that. But you know, as a young person that's out in the world, regardless of being a woman, regardless of being Black, to have someone build you and say you matter, or like you are valuable, and don't listen to what other people do, because a lot of people wouldn't do what you're saying, is also a boost in confidence. And then he told me like the story of like Minister Farrakhan, and I guess like how he has a room, and in the room it's all the negative things that people say about him. And so Dr. Wesley was saying, like, if you're going to venture down this road, but any road that you're going to venture on, you are going to have people who are going to attack you. Are you going to internalize every message that you get? And, you know, that was like, I was like, whoa, am I? You know, because I mean, like, even in the other space, I just had this lunch or breakfast date, right? Not date, but interview, where someone just basically was just like, tell me how I'm not good enough, you know? And it really, like, it changed my perspective of, like, now it's like, if I read negative comments about me, it bothers me, but not anymore, because then I think, like, oh, if I was Dr. Wesley, or, oh, if I was the minister, like, are they going to allow the words of others to stop them from their mission in the world? And so
Right.
now but that was, like, an important lesson for me to have, you know? And I think, had I not been working in an environment with people who actually care about my development and my growth and who I am as a person, they just would have been like, so what? It happened, right? And then, you know, I mean, a lot of people get that in the workforce where they're not reinforced. So when negative things happen, they're just kind of like the guy. It happens, just do better. It's like, well, I can't necessarily do better yet, because I haven't even built a certain internal self-esteem to block out this negativity.
Right.
I can't do better until I build a skill set. And so I think, you know, working with Dr. Wesley and then and Brother Warren helped me to develop certain internal skill sets, to where it's like, I really don't think there's anything anyone could say where I would feel the need to attack them back, right? Because it's like, at this point, I really do feel secure in who I am in the world. And a lot of it has to do with, like, going and doing doing the show weekly,
Mm-hmm.
and, like, having people say whatever they want, right? Because at one point, I remember people were saying that I was working with a hate group, and, like, I would get phone calls about that. And so, like, they were really good at just, like, helping me to build that self-esteem. So now it's just like, I'm so internally solid. It's like, okay, this person said that. I can't control their mouth.
Right.
Am I going to allow what this person says to, you know, to stop me? And I just think that's so valuable. Like, that was worth more than any type of education that I actually got.
Yes, it's definitely valuable. And how do you think that we can help our youth gain this skill set so that other people aren't able to tear them down and they're able to keep themselves leveled?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. That's like it's a complicated question too, because I mean, if we're talking about Black youth in particular, then we have to really acknowledge that we as a community have an appetite for low vibration. We love drama. Like even when we were talking about giving each other compliments, and your response was like, well, at least they kept it real, right? So we have this appetite for that negativity somehow is keeping it real. And then a lot of us actually don't have access to really good human beings like Dr. Wesley or Brother Warren, who are like, you know, like, my mission is to uplift my community.
Right.
So it's like, it's complicated, because we've also hear a lot of our youth saying that they've trusted people who look like them, and then it goes to the skin, not all skin folk is kinfolk type deal. So, but I guess get involved with the nation. Or like get involved with, like, maybe I don't know, get involved with people who say that not only do they have a mission to uplift Black people, but, like, it's actually their intention, you know, like, what is their character, you know? And by that, what I mean is, like, for instance, when people attack Dr. Wesley, you actually don't see him, like, going on a whole rampage, making a YouTube page saying, this person, I'm gonna beat you up, right? So, like, find people who actually live the principles that they say that they have, you know? So it's easy. Someone easily could be like, they're all about uplifting other people, but the moment that they feel attacked, they're attacking back. So those might not be the best people. Someone said, I believe support is the greatest value in all tasks in life. Everyone's experienced hardship, but support makes the biggest difference. Yeah, I agree. Support does make the biggest difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. And one thing that I have definitely noticed, experiencing myself, sometimes growing up, we don't always have that support. We don't always have positive influences in our life. So it is kind of hard to, try to build yourself up. So I guess it's really at the end of the day, taking that initiative to want to be better and to want to do better so that you can work on yourself. Because if you're just surrounded by negativity, and you never like want to get out of that negativity, then you're going to stay in that negativity your whole life, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, I think that totally makes sense. This is another reason why I give compliments. I purposely give compliments, especially to Black people, but to all people. I really give compliments because how many times have you met someone who's like older and they never heard that they were beautiful, right?
Right.
Or like they never heard that they were smart. They say my mom never said I love you, or my dad never said you're valuable. Like that's a privilege in a sense, and that's free. So I feel like we could support our community just by saying something positive, like to our youth who are out here starting businesses. Hey, there's this little girl not too long ago. I was on Hyde Park, on 53rd, little Black girl. And she was trying to sell me some candy bars, and they were super overpriced. Okay. They were just super overpriced. But I gave her the money because I was like, I'm really proud of you. It's really hard to just go up to strangers and sell a candy bar for twice the price. Because that takes a certain level of confidence, and whether or not she makes another dollar, I wanted her at least to know that like it takes a level of confidence to go up to a stranger and say, hey, do you want to buy this candy that's like $10? Like in my head, I'm like, no, I don't want to buy this candy that is $10 that I could probably get for $1. But she's a little young Black girl, and she approached me, and in my mind I was thinking like, well, I mean, I'm gonna buy the candy bar. And I'm also going to say that takes a skill set to do what she's doing, and I hope she keeps going. Now, if I see her again, I'm probably not going to buy another candy bar because I'm not gonna, buy $10 worth, right? And because also, like, part of support isn't always just giving someone money. Part of the support is just saying, like, I purchased from you that one time, and type deal.
Right. I definitely agree. Yes, ma'am. This has been a beautiful conversation with you today. I believe we'll be back real soon.
I know, Naya. I'm gonna have to interview you. I enjoy talking to you. You're such a ray of light.
Oh,
real quick though, I wanted to know when you talked about Sean Michelle's, was that your first job?
No. I actually worked. I'm sorry. I actually worked at a different ice cream shop before this.
And what was your experience at the different ice cream shop? Like, because you talked about being elevated at Sean Michelle's, right? What was the experience like from the other place?
Okay, so I worked at Oberweis. I'll say the name. I worked at Oberweis. It obviously was not Black owned, and there we were all just employees, right? We were all people, making someone else's dream happen, but they didn't really care about us. So at the same time, I'm coming to work every day, and it's just like exhausting because the energy in there is not good, first of all. So it was just terrible energy. You walk in and everybody's like, I don't want to be here. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to try. But when you're just surrounded by that negativity, sometimes it does bring you down. And so I was offered a job because Brother Yaya was opening a new location in Bronzeville on 40th and Wabash. And so I was like, okay. And I came in, and it was unlike anything that I've like ever worked in before, like any other work experience, because everybody was happy. They were ecstatic. They were loving it. They were like, I love this place. I love being here. Like, we want to help you grow. Like, yes, even though you're working here, we also want to teach you valuable life skills. So once I did start working there, I was like, whoa, like, I really love this place. I'm like, this is becoming my home. And so that's just how it happened. That's how I got to where I am now.
That's really interesting because it's like, imagine if you would have stayed in the other place. How would that have impacted your self-esteem?
Um, the manager there did want to bring me up to be a supervisor or something like that, but I wasn't old enough.
Right.
I wasn't old enough, but still being there, no. I probably would have been in the same place I was in 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we go to places where we're valued, but also too, like what you just said also reminds me that like being in places where people are pouring into you doesn't mean you're not going to be corrected.
That's true. That's,
Like correction's actually a good thing. I've learned, like when people really care about you and they correct you, it helps you. Like one of the things that I learned when I was working with Dr. Wesley, like the importance of saying alleged, because I would just be like, so and so did this. He's like, you have to say alleged. Do
mm-hmm.
you have all of the facts? I'm like, I think I do. Oh, you think? And it's like, that's actually like a really important part of journalism, is you don't actually want to necessarily accuse things of people, especially if they haven't been, what word am I looking for? They go to court and then at the verdict,
Found guilty?
yeah, so like you use, it's alleged so-and-so
Right.
is doing this. It's, and it's like, being in spaces where people not only value but want to help you grow, they give you correction, because your correction is your ultimate growth. Or at least that's what I think. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm still learning.
Oh, I definitely agree. In architecture, we have such things called desk critiques. So our professor will have this one-on-one time with our professor, and our professor will just be like, "Nope, this is not going to work. Like, I don't like this, whatever." And it's just like sometimes it hurts a little bit because you're like, "Wow, I just spent 7 hours working on it," and you're telling it's not going to work. But then at the end of the day, they are helping you to be better. Like obviously, sometimes your design literally is just not going to work. So
yeah.
it's okay, you really are helping me, like you really are teaching me something. So if we aren't able to take correction, then we're only going to bring ourselves down deeper than where we even are now, because some people really are trying to help us. And if you're always just like no, like you just hating and all that, then you're never going to be able to grow. So
that you're absolutely right. And also too is like, I think a lot of us, we live in the everyone gets a trophy culture. And in the whole everyone gets a trophy culture, there's like no personal responsibility, there is no correction. It's like, you did really good, high five. And it's like, no, you actually did really bad. And then what happens, I think, is when everyone gets a trophy and there is no such thing as correction, you overvalue your contribution and your skill set when it's not that good.
right.
I've definitely done that. Have you ever done anything like that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It'd be a reality slap too. You're like, oh, I'm not that talented.
Yes. Like she lied to me. Or sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, okay, they'll be like, oh, like I love this. This is going to work and all that. And I'm just like, I know you're lying to me. I already know, because it's not. It's truly not.
How did you develop that then?
Um, so I decided that I really need to be honest with myself. Like, yes, I can receive input from other people, but if I'm not honest with myself, then I'm obviously lying to myself and I'm allowing others to lie to me. And I'd rather what I do in my life be truth centered, stay in reality rather than living up in the clouds.
Oh my goodness. So now you have to say, how did you start learning how to be honest with yourself? And then also I'll say this and I could be totally wrong, but in my experience, I think a lot of particularly women, we don't know how to be honest with ourselves. It's like really hard because like, I could be wrong. I don't know. I think, I'd be listening to some women. I'm like, I don't think you're being honest with yourself right now, but okay, girl.
It's definitely something that we as women struggle with. But I feel like as far as for myself, it's really getting to know yourself, like understanding yourself, like falling in love with yourself, taking your self journey. Like everybody has a journey that they go on with themselves to, work on themselves, make yourself better, like really understand yourself. So for me, understanding myself, I kind of realized what I was doing that was in the end hurting myself. So I was like, okay, I know what I need to do. I know what I'm doing wrong. So this is what I'm going to do. If that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. It's still, I feel like it's still like a hard process, because sometimes I have to double check with like, am I being honest with myself? Am I, telling the truth, right? Because even when we were talking about like my experiences with the other jobs, and I was like, well, outside of that one guy, no one ever said that that's not why they were hiring me. And yes, I did look at some people's LinkedIn's and was like, my skill set seems to be better than them. But then I also learned in that experience with like, well, did I really actually have this skill set and the experience then? So sometimes I do think it is a struggle with like, one, being honest with yourself, and then two, like, am I experiencing sexism and racism right now?
Right.
Like which one is it? So sometimes I think that I'm totally just like in alignment. I'm being honest with where I'm at. And so it's like I've been trying to like assess myself more and do that. And I found that learning how to be honest with myself of where I'm at is like really hard. It's not like I don't think we took a class on how to be honest 101.
Definitely. And it's hard. Like I've been working on being honest with myself for over 6 years now. That's how long I've been working on it.
Oh, you've been at this game for 6 years?
No. I've been trying, and I'm just here where I am now, but hopefully I'm here now. I started down here, and hopefully I'll be up there. So.
Yeah, and you're also in STEM though too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think doing a degree like STEM helps you to be more honest with yourself? Because like, for instance, doing liberal arts, you don't, in my experience, liberal arts wasn't like, well, it's just not the same as STEM, right? So it's like, if you are creating a bridge or you're doing chemistry, if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. And other people's lives might be at risk if you get something wrong. With other liberal arts degrees, it's not really like that. So I'm just kind of curious now if you think a lot of it has to do with also like the path that you've chosen, where you constantly, because you talked about like you called it the death scare.
No, a death critique.
Oh, a death critique. Yeah, there are no death critiques in social work.
But yes, I actually, now that you bring that up, I do think that that plays a big role into my being accepting of things now, because sometimes just I truly am wrong. Like it's not going to make sense, and I wouldn't want to put, like you said before, I wouldn't want to put someone else's life at risk because I was like, oh no, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to make this building like this, and then it falls down on like 100 people. That would be absolutely terrible. So I guess I don't know, when it comes to taking correction, I think if you have someone who is truly there, like, telling you the truth and actually, trying to help you in some way or give you knowledge, maybe they aren't even trying to help you, but as long as they lay the facts down, I feel like that'll be helpful. So I guess it really does depend on what you are doing, because maybe if I didn't choose this major, I wouldn't have been so understanding or so accepting of the truth.
I feel like doing the show, doing the math actually put me in a position to start accepting the truth. Even when I look back at some of the old videos of where my mindset was and like what I thought, I definitely totally, like, that was my thought process. That's where I was. And I couldn't really see beyond that. And I would say doing the show made me really question the reality that I was living in. And it was actually a very hard process. It like shook me at my core, because it's like if you spend the most of your life thinking that life is X, Y, and Z, and then you find out that it's actually A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you're like, right. Whoa, time out. I'm a grown adult. It's been X, Y, Z this whole time. What do you mean?
Right.
And so then I had to start learning how to just be honest with where we're at in the world, and also my understanding of where we're at. So it's like, I totally thought we lived in an integrated society. That, like, I talked about that with Dr. Boyce, but like that was like a hard one for me, because I was like, I definitely know I'm being honest when I say that I live in an integrated society. I'm being honest when I say that these things don't matter. And you couldn't tell me that I wasn't being honest. And then I kept like doing the research with him and learning. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's not what I thought. And that was even hard to like take a step back and be like, okay, maybe it's not what I thought. Because before, like, I got my undergrad degree in comparative ethnic studies, which is basically race relations. So in my experience, I was like, well, I had been studying this, but like I had the opportunity to study this. So clearly that's an example of integration. And it's like, that's okay. So so what does that even mean? So, it's a process that even now today, I'm always trying to like, be like, okay, is this what's really happening right now? But then not trying to always question myself. But then it's just like, I don't want to go back to like being an illusion of how the world works or like even how some of my thoughts about like what I initially thought was like female empowerment and female liberation. Now I'm like, I don't really know if I think that's what that is anymore. But a couple of years ago, I was like, that's definitely liberation right there.
So what you just said kind of made me think of what my question was before. And I asked, how can we, I believe it was something on the lines, how can we help like our younger folks, like the youth, really like learn or maybe become accepting of things. So I was thinking, maybe I know a lot of young people growing up, they're not surrounded in the best of environments, but maybe just when we do come across these youth, just give them the ideas, like at least put it out there so they'll be able to, take it for themselves. And even on social media now, we have platforms where we can reach out across the world. So I really think that there's a lot that we could do. We just have to, really try.
I agree with you. And I also say that I understand the challenge of that too, because someone has to be open. Like I was really open to learning. If I was closed, even though I thought I was right about a lot of things, and sometimes I still think that I'm right about a lot of things, I still had to be open. And I would say some of our youth have just been beaten down so much and told so often what they're not, that they're not open even to positivity or being open to a new understanding, because so many people have harmed them. You know what I mean? And I think that's the part that, like, if we're going to do this work, we also have to be understanding to that, right? So it's like, you can plant the seed, but it might not germinate until like 10 years from now.
That's true.
It might fall on deaf ears. And it's almost kind of like, I think one time I watched a lecture from Minister Louis Farrakhan. I don't know what lecture it was, but he was talking about like how loving Black people is also really hard, but like he really loves Black people, and you have to keep doing the work. And I think that's kind of like the same with the youth. It's like loving our youth is going to be really hard, but we still have to keep doing the work, because like we also have a lot of mental illness and psychosis going on too. So not everyone is going to be open to like positivity. Not everyone is going to be open to you even planting a seed. Some people, you might say something and they're ready to fight you, you know? And then if the youth is ready to fight you, who are you in the midst of that? Right. Are you going to still be sweet little Nye, or are you going to kafu?
I'd like to say that I would still be sweet. But it does take a lot of understanding from both ends.
Because you think about it, the minister has really been dragged by Black people. He's been uplifted and loved by Black people, but he has also been dragged by Black people, and he still shows love. Yeah. How many people can honestly, like...
Not many.
Because think about this too, like the type of dragging that you've experienced or that I've experienced probably has not been on an international scale. That's a lot of vibrational energy of people just trying to drag you down, let alone your own people. You know what I mean? Like, we're just basing it in maybe like, one-on-one interactions or with like a few people online. And I think that's the hard part of like reaching our youth and helping them, is that I think you have to love them more than whatever stones are going to be thrown.
Absolutely.
Oh, someone just said, yes, ma'am. He said to love and save Black people means you will have to curse and give blessings because our people are difficult to deal with. Yeah, okay, so I think you saw the same lecture that I saw. And it's like, it's true, though.
It is true. And the work that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is doing, I'm sure none of us would be able to, take everything that he's taken.
No, they get his name wrong. How many people, they'd be like, Farrakhan. It's like, there's no I in his name. It's literally F-A-R, far, but it's like, look, it's like, when people say my name wrong, I correct them. I'd be like, oh, my name's Janita, and it's like, his humility is like, he just focuses on whatever the message is. He's not even spending time saying, it's Farrakhan, there's no I in it. And it's like, my little self would be like, someone emailed me and like she kept spelling my name wrong. So at the last email, I finally was just like, so I noticed that you consistently have been spelling my name wrong, but in my email and in my signature, I spelled my name correctly, And now I look back, I was like, oh, that's kind of like petty. The minister would have just like focused on whatever the topic was about. But I feel the need to be like, but my name is.
But see, it's good that you were at least able to acknowledge that.
After,
yes. But that's growth, though. That's still growth.
Thank you, Naya.
Different rates, different times. So definitely.
Yeah.
We've been on for over an hour now.
Oh,
yes.
It doesn't even feel like it's been an hour. This has been great. I always enjoy talking to you.
Oh, likewise. So we're gonna let everybody go. I will stay in contact with you though. Do you mind just leaving your information down, like your social medias, and Isha social media, how to reach out to?
Yes. So if you want to learn more about Isha, you can go to Innocence Healing Arts. That's the Instagram. And you can check out Crucial Conversations. That's the show that I host with them. It's a once a month show. Again, that is, I'm looking at it on my thing on my computer. It's Innocence Healing Arts. You can also click on there, and then you could see the schedule. There's you can see the schedule of weekly and bi-weekly and monthly classes that are going on. You can also follow me on just Instagram, Janita Harris 2018. Be on the lookout for the show I'm producing, High Value, with awesome professionals, Mike and Marco. I'm super excited about that. And then whenever Dr. Wesley is done with his research, be prepared. Be prepared. That's all I'm going to say.
How can we tune into Doing the Math?
Oh, yes. Doing the Math is still just DTM on the YouTube. Like and subscribe. We have a Patreon page. So you go do the Math Patreon. Right now, like we're kind of like we're waiting because of the whole coronavirus, and then Dr. Wesley's working on his research, so we don't have a new episode right now, but we will have a new episode whenever we have one. Okay. But in the meantime, you could go to Do the Math YouTube page and the Facebook page and the Instagram page, and like and subscribe. And you can also go to our Patreon page and help support us. I will say one of the things that's different from Crucial Conversations versus Do the Math is Crucial Conversations, I'm not concerned is gonna get taken down. Do the Math gets taken down a lot, y'all. We be getting blocks and stuff, and penalties and violations from YouTube and just all those other things. And I'm like, whoa, where's the lie? I have yet to see misinformation from anything. Like, I think the last show that we did with the rabbi had on one of the pages, it got flagged for misinformation because it said we were talking about COVID. And I was like, we didn't even talk about COVID. So I say that to say please support the Patreon page, because as a Black media outlet that is, its intention is to uplift Black people and give information that is life affirming, we get shut down a lot. So Patreon helps us to keep going and to help us get these tools and use other platforms to get the information out. And then Crucial Conversations, I'm not worried about that one, just because like it's a very different community. very different intentions, and it doesn't have like the polarizing effect that Do the Math has. Someone just said, one learned believer is harder on Satan than 1,000 ignorant worshipers. Prophet Muhammad, that's why they shut it down, my sister. That is the truth. Oh, my cousin just came on. Hey, Brittany. Yeah, that is the truth. That is the truth. So, like, please support the Patreon page, because Dr. Wesley, Brother Warren literally have dedicated their lives to the things that we're doing. I've dedicated myself to this platform of what we're doing. The information is so important, and the support that we get to Patreon actually helps us to navigate the setbacks. Hey, Fran, because I'm telling you, YouTube will demonetize us. YouTube penalizes us. Facebook has taken down some of our clips. Even on my personal Instagram, I've been censored, and some of my certain posts that I had disappeared. I did not delete them. They literally disappeared, and I wasn't able to re-upload them. And so this is another reason why you should just support our Patreon page. If you believe that what we're saying is life affirming and people need to hear this, help support us. And then that was a lot, but you know.
No, thank you. The same thing happened to NNV News. They deleted our YouTube channel, so we had to create a new one. Yes.
What?
Mm-hmm.
You know, most likely it's probably going to get deleted again.
Probably. But
are you prepared for that?
We'll just keep putting more information out.
Do you guys have a Patreon?
I don't know. I'm not quite.
Guys, get a Patreon and make sure you support NNV too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think, not trying to go on a tangent, but like, how we can support our youth is also by supporting Black content where we're having these intentional conversations, right? Absolutely. And like, we have to understand that we're living in a system that if you don't have the most PC, everyone gets a trophy type of response, you're gonna get shut down. And so if you're not supporting us, you know, like, for me, I don't know. Now, I just have to say this one last thing. It just kind of, sometimes when I see people and they're like, there are no Black leaders in our community, or like, Black people never want to do this or do that, I'm like, well, where are these people? Like, are they living under a rock? Are you living under a rock? Because there are plenty Black leaders who are doing great work, and you purposely don't support them. When other people tell you about their work, you're quick to be like, oh my gosh, that's a hate group. You better be careful. And it's like, what is a hate group? What are you talking about? What facts do you have that have said this group has done any of the things that you're saying? None, right? And so, not to go on a tangent, I get really passionate about this, but like, the fact that you just told me that you guys also got taken down, it makes me mad. It makes me mad, because if we supported each other, it would not matter when we lose our content and we lose our views. We would not have to start again from zero. Mm-hmm. So get a Patreon page, support NNV, support Doing the Math. My cousin just said, can we pin it? I don't know if we can. I don't have access to pin anything.
Oh, okay. Pin her message?
No, pin like the Patreon accounts.
Oh, so if you could type that in the chat, then I could pin it.
Okay, hold on, let me.
But no, I absolutely love having these conversations with you, because you are so passionate about it, and then you're also very intelligent, and you have a lot to bring to the table. So
thank you. Sometimes I read. Just sometimes. Sometimes I hang out with scholars and read their research. Just a little bit, you know. I'm trying to find the Patreon Do the Math so it could.
Okay, so actually we might as well go ahead and end this interview.
Yep.
You think you could
it's just patreon.com/dothemath.tv.
Okay. Well, that's simple to remember. patreon.com/dothemath.tv.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Naya. Thank you so much, NNV News. I always enjoy you guys, and I share your work. I love it.
Well, thank you so very much. We're gonna always, of course, share your work as well.
Thank you.
Well, please follow us on Instagram, NNV News, and please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, NNV News. So, our website is nnvnews.com. And
bye.
Bye. It was wonderful speaking with you again.
It was. Oh, it's pinned for us. Great. It's pinned. Okay, everybody. See you later.
All right. Peace.
All right. Peace.